In a small village nestled between rolling hills, there lived a young man named Leo. He had big dreams. He wanted to make a name for himself, to build something meaningful, something lasting. But despite his ambitions, he felt stuck. Every day, he woke up with the same thoughts. I'll start tomorrow. I'll make changes soon. But tomorrow never came. Leo worked tirelessly in many ways, but none of it seemed to add up. The results were never as immediate as he expected. His progress felt slow. One day, while walking through the village, Leo passed an elderly man who was tending to a small garden. The man smiled at him and said, "You look troubled, my friend. What's on your mind?" Leo, feeling defeated, replied, "I'm doing everything I can, but nothing seems to work. I'm trying to achieve my dreams, but progress is so slow." The elderly man nodded, wiped his brow, and pointed to a small bamboo shoot growing beside him. "You see that bamboo? It's been growing for years beneath the soil. You don't see it, but it's there, preparing for something extraordinary." Leo looked at the bamboo shoot. It was barely a few inches tall. "It doesn't look like it's growing at all," he said, puzzled. The old man smiled. "That's because you're looking with the wrong timeline." He invited Leo to sit and began to explain. For the first few years, a bamboo plant shows almost no growth above the ground. But beneath the surface, its roots are spreading deep, wide, creating a strong foundation. And then, when it's ready, it can grow feet in just days. Leo sat in silence, absorbing the words. "Your dreams," the man continued, "are like bamboo. If you judge them too soon, you'll give up. But if you trust the process, even when you see nothing, something powerful is happening under the surface." That night, Leo went home with those words echoing in his mind. He looked at his scattered plans and to-do lists and realized what he was missing wasn't more action, but repetition. He didn't need to do everything. He just needed to do something consistently. He picked one habit: write 100 words each day. Small, quiet, but his own. The elderly man nodded, wiped his brow, and pointed to a small bamboo shoot growing beside him. "You see that bamboo? It's been growing for years beneath the soil. You don't see it, but it's there, preparing for something extraordinary." The next morning, Leo sat at his desk. His mind, as always, tried to complicate things. Maybe you should do more. Maybe 100 words isn't enough. But he remembered the bamboo. He remembered the roots. So, he wrote exactly 100 words, nothing more. The first few days felt strange. The habit didn't feel powerful. It didn't feel life-changing. But it was doable, and that was everything. A week passed. Then two. Slowly, his journal began to fill. The pages piled up. And though no one else noticed, Leo did. He began to feel something shift, not outside, but inside. He wasn't just building a routine. He was building trust with himself. One day, he caught himself thinking, "If I can do this small thing every day, what else could I do?" That thought lit something inside him. He started waking up a bit earlier, drinking more water, walking more. He didn't overhaul his life. He just kept adding small roots, one habit at a time. And like the bamboo, the foundation beneath him was growing, quietly, steadily, with purpose. If you're ready to grow quietly but powerfully, hit subscribe and tap the bell, because your roots matter more than your results. Weeks passed. Leo never missed a day. Some days the words came easily, flowing like water. Other days, he struggled. He stared at the page, frustrated, tired. But he still wrote. Even when the sentences were clumsy, even when it felt pointless, he kept the promise to himself. And that quiet commitment began to change the way he moved through the world. He no longer judged progress by speed. He started noticing how his mind was calmer, how small choices, like saying no to distractions, became easier. It wasn't about the 100 words anymore. It was about who he was becoming by honoring them. One evening, While visiting the old man again, Leo said, "It still feels slow sometimes. I'm not sure when I'll see real change." The man smiled. "Real change is always slow. That's how you know it's real." He pointed at the bamboo shoot again. It looked almost the same. But then he said, "Come back tomorrow." Leo was curious. What could possibly change overnight? The old man just said, "That's the thing with roots. You won't see anything for a long time. And then, one day, everything breaks through." The next day, Leo returned to the garden. The bamboo that had been barely noticeable the day before now stood several inches taller. Not feet, not yet, but clearly different. He stared at it, eyes wide. How did this happen so fast? The old man chuckled. "It didn't. You just couldn't see it before." Leo smiled, but deeper than that, he understood. His own life had felt like that bamboo. Weeks of effort, routine, showing up daily with no applause. But now, he began to notice the growth. Not just in his writing, but in his confidence, his thinking, his choices. He was still far from where he wanted to be, but he was no longer lost. And more importantly, he wasn't impatient anymore. He realized something powerful that morning. Growth doesn't ask for attention. It demands consistency. It doesn't need you to believe in big moments. It needs you to show up during the small, boring ones. Leo no longer searched for motivation. He focused on momentum. He stopped asking, "How fast can I change?" and started asking, "How long can I keep going?" And that single shift changed everything. Leo didn't talk much about what he was doing. He didn't post updates. He didn't announce his habits. But slowly, people around him began to notice. His younger cousin asked, "Why do you write every day?" He simply said, "Because I said I would." A friend asked, "Aren't you tired of doing the same thing over and over?" He smiled, "Yes, but I'm more tired of starting over." There was something different in him now. Not louder, not flashier, just steadier. The kind of difference that comes from repetition, not revolution. From small wins stacked quietly on top of each other. He wasn't chasing a breakthrough anymore. He was the breakthrough. And when setbacks came, as they always do, he didn't fall apart. He had built something underneath. A system, a self-respect that didn't depend on results. Even when no one clapped, even when no one noticed, he kept showing up. Because he finally understood. You don't need massive change to create a different life. You just need a different rhythm, a quiet one, a rooted one, a rhythm that says, "I'm still here." Weeks turned into months. Leo's 100 words a day had turned into thousands, not because he forced it, but because he built it. His habit had grown, like roots becoming a trunk. It had become part of who he was. One morning, a teacher noticed his journal. Curious, she asked to read a few pages. After flipping through them silently, she looked up and said, "There's something real in here. You should consider sharing it." At first, Leo hesitated. His words weren't perfect. Some entries were messy, raw, but then he remembered. So was growth. So was the bamboo. So he said yes. He submitted a small piece to the school blog. Nothing fancy, just one of his old entries about discipline and small steps. Days later, a student stopped him in the hallway. "Hey," she said, "I read what you wrote. I've been stuck for a while, and it helped me start something again. So, thanks." Leo didn't know what to say, not because he was surprised, but because he knew now. The roots he had grown in silence had begun to reach others, and they weren't just holding him up anymore. They were starting to lift others too. That night, Leo sat by his window with the journal in his lap. The village was quiet. The sky was wide and open, like a page waiting to be written on. He didn't feel like he had arrived. He hadn't won anything. He hadn't gone viral, but he had won something more important. His rhythm, his focus, and a quiet kind of strength that didn't come from loud declarations, but from daily follow-through. He remembered the bamboo again. How long it had taken for anything to appear. How patient it had to be. And how, once it started growing, it didn't stop. That's how he saw himself now. Not someone who had changed overnight, but someone who had become unshakable because of the roots he chose to grow when no one was watching. He opened a new page and wrote 7 simple words. "I grow by what I do daily." Then he closed the journal and smiled. Not because he was finished, but because he knew he would begin again tomorrow. because real change doesn't start with a loud promise. It starts with a quiet habit.